Hello guys, this is Dark Fox Sage 2 and we are back with our new fanfic, which is What If Naruto Got Married to Kaguya Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and please subscribe to the channel. It motivates me to upload more fanfic like these for you all. Now let's start the fanfiction. In the early days of my life, I had little to nothing to be happy about. The fact was that I had no choice, no freedom, not a single reason to wake up in the morning to say that I was going to have a wonderful day. You would think as a prince that would not be the case, that the supposed life of royalty was a life of luxury and happiness. In those days I would tell you to stop smoking whatever grass you were smoking because it was making you crazy. My life was pretty much routine, and decided for me even before I was even born. One day I was so bored that I went outside, and that is when I saw a shooting star. Like an absolute teen, I wished that I could find true love. Wouldn't you know it? Sometimes wishes do come true after all. It turns out that the shooting star was no star at all, but a woman, a very beautiful woman with silver hair, nice body, and if I had to mention something strange about her was the fact she had an extra eye in the middle of her forehead. I had to admit that when I met her I was stunned. I was literally speechless as she walked near me. And I had to admit that even if the kiss she gave me was a bit unexpected, it was certainly not unwelcome. I learned that her name was Kaguya Otsutsuki. I began to learn about her family, her life, and I fell in love. Eventually, we got married, and I assumed the position of my father, the emperor of a little territory, nothing much. The only thing that kept me happy was my marriage. The boredom of the throne would have been too much otherwise. The fact is that I didn't even realize when a neighboring kingdom decided to try and invade mine. We had been friends for generations, and I even played with the current emperor as kids. We were childhood friends. Kaguya didn't like the fact that my once childhood friend wanted me dead, and so she told me to accompany her to a very special tree. In truth, I had thought she simply wanted me to take my mind off the fighting between my territory and the kingdom of my former best friend, but no. She took me to the single largest tree I ever was seen. With a single rock, she threw it at a piece of fruit hanging from one of its branches and it fell down. She told me that with this fruit we would gain strength, enough strength to end the stupid war and be able to live together for much, much longer. I ate half and she ate the other. The second that I did, I felt something happen in my body. My eyes burned and hurt like someone was pulling them out. My body felt like it was on fire. My blood felt like it was boiling. As I woke up, my head had been resting on her lap. She smiled at me. She told me that now we were ready to end this conflict once and for all. We actually did. We trapped the enemy in an eternal illusion, an illusion that would in theory grant whoever was trapped inside it their most desired wish, their deepest desire, the thing they would not even tell someone. Since my former friend was in that illusion, I basically became the emperor of the world, like I needed that when my wife actually told me she was expecting, and I would soon become something much more challenging and something that made me that much happier, a father. My kids were in truth one of my joys. Hagoromo and Hamura were my precious twin sons, and I could not be more proud of them as I saw them do the things they could do with the energy we obtained from that piece of fruit. Our lives were happy and we saw our children grow into adults, but that is when something terrible happened. My sons began to fight with each other about who would succeed me. Hagoromo said that it should be him since he was the eldest, and Hamura was not having any of that. I might have more experience using this strange energy my wife called chakra, and my wife would never want to harm our sons. The second they learned that the energy was from a piece of fruit, something happened also that I wish that it never did. Greed entered into the minds of my children. In a last attempt to make sure my children did not do something regrettable, I went back to the tree and since I could control plants, I began talking with him. The second I turned around I saw my sons attacking their mother, demanding that they are shown where the tree was. I screamed and told them that they should not harm their own mother. The second I did the tree and I became one, for it was the only way to protect it from the greedy ambitions of my own children. Once again I felt like my body was being torn apart and sure enough, I grew to colossal size. I could feel 10 tails on my rear, and I saw the form I had taken when I looked upon my wife. The battle between me and my sons was more horrible than anything I could imagine, it was more painful than anyone could ever feel, and to see that my own children would seal their mother in a giant ball of rock, forever to be floating above our world, was simply too much. I fought against them. If I defeated them, they would release their mother and see that their ambitions were harmful, or so I planned. Hagoromo did something I never expected of him. He took his own powers and cut me to pieces, 9 pieces to be exact. To be cut apart by your eldest son was sadder than me or my wife could ever imagine. As the seal was being complete, I saw my wife cry something akin to oil, and that is the last thing I saw. I would never imagine that the boys that we brought into this world would do this to us, their parents. I slept for I don't know how long, or maybe this soul trapped in limbo. I couldn't know the difference. All that I know is that darkness, cold, and sadness were my constant reality. I don't know when it happened or even why, but I began to see this light, and for some reason, I was being pushed towards it. As I came to feel the air on my face, I felt a sharp cut on my body and someone held me upside down and smacked my rear really hard. I could not help but yell in pain. I looked at the man that hit me. He had deep blue eyes and blonde hair. He smiled at me. Be most welcome to the world, Naruto Uzumaki. Kushina, you should see our son, he is an angel. He placed me in the arms of this red-haired woman. She looked like she was crying. Yes, Minato, this is our son, our precious baby boy. I wish I could be with him as he grows up, but I just know that it will not be the case. You must seal that beast in our son. It will be the only way for him to withstand Kyuubi, and I am sorry Minato, I am simply too tired. I saw the woman that was supposedly my mother close her eyes and breathed her last breath. I felt something being drawn on my body and knew it was the supposed seal. Too bad for my supposed father, the creature they feared, the one they named the Kyuubi was not a foreign entity like they thought, it was a piece of me. I guess I should really keep that a secret. I will need to live this new life as this Naruto Uzumaki, and maybe gather all the remaining pieces of my strength, of my being. When I am whole, Kaguya, my love, we shall be together again, and this time nothing, no one will separate us again. As an old man came to find me surrounded by the 2 dead bodies of my supposed parents, I heard him say that he was taking back his position as Hokage and that the first law he was going to make was that nobody, and I mean nobody, may talk about what was sealed inside of me, or call me a demon. The punishment would be death. As I grew up in the orphanage, I used what little power I had to grow some food in the backyard. I had to, since the people running the place would either feed me something that was poisoned, rotten, or not feed me at all. I guess knowing the things I knew from my former life made me able to recognize poisons rather easily. Every once in a while a couple would try to adopt me, and if they had been honest I could easily see myself living with them as their child, but in truth they all lied. They just wanted to take me out into the woods and abandon me. Too bad for them, the trees and plants apparently were still very much loyal to me. I would simply walk to the orphanage, and when the old man asked me where were my supposed adoptive parents, I told him that a bunch of beasts ate them while they took me to a picnic in the forest. I guess they wanted to celebrate my adoption. After that, the woman who managed the orphanage threw me into a garbage bin, and hoped that I would get sick enough to die. I was not the weakling these fools thought I was. I actually managed to regain one of the 9 pieces of myself, and I had the memories of an entire lifetime as a warrior, monarch, and diplomat. I could have tried to reason with her, but even I could tell she would look at me as a punk trying to put on airs at best, or a con artist at the worst. I got out of the bin and decided if they didn't want to provide me with food, I could make my own or hunt some of the animals that lived in the forest apparently one of my sons made. The ground was fertile, and the shade of those trees, with that wind blowing through them, was rather nice. I decided to go to the so-called Hokage monument. 2 of my descendants were on it after all. I needed to go there and try to figure out why they didn't look like anything even close to my lovely wife or myself. It became a routine for me. Once a year I would go and talk to the carved monument, especially the 2 who were people I recognized as my descendants, and every year there was a mob of idiots trying to kill me, trying being the keyword. I went through this for 5 years, and I had to say that after the third attempt I was getting sick and tired of dealing with the mob of pathetic fools. I mean honestly, if you are going to murder someone, plan out your ambush, study your target, make at least an effort, but that would be too much to ask of these fools. I mean, they didn't even have the common sense that ants possess. Every time they screamed that I should die, they called me a demon. Actually, that was the kindest thing they called me. I simply refused to lower myself to their level and repeat it. I had long lost any mercy I once possessed. Being apart from my true beloved caused my heart to become frozen, and my mercy simply dried up. They attacked me and I would cause a tree to come right from under them. The branches grew so fast that they pierced the hearts of the fools that tried to ambush me. I simply walked away each time, leaving a tree with a few dozen corpses hanging from the branches, like lanterns in a New Year's celebration actually. I can actually imagine Kaguya telling me why to bother with the tree at all. I could flash incinerate a lot of them in less than a second. I had tried to make this a deterrent, but after 3 years I could clearly see that this was not working the way I wanted to. As I got back to my dwelling, which was a rather nice cave at the base of the Hokage mountain, I found that 2 people were waiting for me. One was a man I met briefly the day I was born, and the other was a dog-masked Anbu. Honestly, if I knew I would have visitors, I could have picked some leaves to make some tea. I do have some snacks growing in the back of the cave. The old man looked at me and laughed. If only this was a simple visit, Naruto. I need to talk to you about what you did 3 times now. I also need to know why you aren't in the orphanage, or what do you plan to do in the future. I looked at him, and with a hand sign a couple of small trees came from the cave floor, forming a couple of stools for them to sit. I had a nice rock formation for myself. Those people broke the law. They called me demon, and such they deserve to die. If that is not good enough, Lord Hokage, then I claim self-defense. The orphanage, or should I say the owner of the orphanage, threw me in the garbage bin behind that ramen stand in the middle of town when I was 5. I went to tell you, but that secretary of yours would not let me in. I did think about going through an open window, but that would be simply rude, and there was no guarantee that you would even believe me. As to what I plan for the future, isn't that what you are going to tell me, Lord Hokage? He began to laugh as I looked at him. It is true that I would find it pretty hard to believe the owner of the orphanage would throw anyone away like that. She is my cousin after all. As for the secretary, she probably knows how much paperwork I have to finish. But you are right, I am here to tell you that you are of age to enter the academy. I began to scratch the back of my head and clean out my right ear with my right pinky. And why would I want to join the academy? What possible benefit would I have to gain going there? The old man looked at me and began shaking his head. For starters, you would have a profession. When you graduate, you would have a rather steady income. But to make it better for you, I will provide you with an apartment, a monthly amount for personal needs, and will talk with my secretary to allow you to enter whenever you want. I was not buying this charade. A kid would be gushing with smiles and gratitude, but I was no kid. No matter how much old my body was, he still considers me the container of the 9 tails. He has no clue that I had absorbed the so-called tailed beast and regain a portion of my power. Make it so that I have access to your private library and the ninja library. To add to that, the apartment would be best if it was in the Anbu residential building. That would make it easier for them to keep an eye on me and would reduce the number of people I would have to end up killing. Do those things and you got yourself a deal. The old man began to nod his head. Most kids aren't as level-headed as you are, Naruto. Alright, I agree with those conditions, but is that really all? Knowing that the supposed teachers in the academy could be blind with hatred to treat me fairly, I decided to look at the dog-masked Anbu. If for some reason the academy decides to give me a failing grade, and I fail to become a ninja, I want the right to pack up my things and do whatever I wish with my life. My decision, and you or anyone else cannot interfere with what I decide. The old man got off the stool and walked towards me with an open, and after a handshake, we had an accord. Looks like I need to get ready for tomorrow, since tomorrow is my first day at the academy. The next morning I was not happy at all. I guess it would be too much to ask that people didn't stare at me like they seem to be doing. All my gear and clothes were stuff I either repaired or modified to fit me from stuff I took from either bandits or stuff people threw away. Thank goodness those bandits also stole hundreds of rolls of cloth, leather and other things I would need. The Hokage was honest when he said I would get a nice apartment, and it was rather nice. He did set up a monthly sum of money to my name. That is true. The part that he didn't mention that most of that money would be gone if I did something is to buy something as extravagant as an apple or a roll of toilet paper. I was something that made me even angrier when I saw the price tag on the apple stand, and I walked over to where it was and brought this to the attention of the cashier. She didn't even blink when she said that price was for everyone else, and not for me. I had to pay a different price. I looked at her and it took a great deal of control to walk out of there, which made every person in that grocery store to start cheering that I was not inside it anymore. I went to a nearby forest and using my chakra I caused an apple tree to grow. Honestly, I had half a mind to take a bag of these much nicer apples, take them to the manager of that grocery store and telling him and the cashier that they could shove them where the sun don't shine, free of charge. I walked to the academy and the staff pretty much told me to get out, that a creature like me had no place in a place of learning. I ignored them both and walked down a corridor. I wrote the number of the classroom I was assigned the night before. I had 2 apples with me, wanted to make a good impression on my teachers. As I reached the door I knocked on the door. Nobody came, so I knocked on the door a little harder. Again I was ignored. Now I was angry. I began to bash my fist against the door and the door broke free from the door frame and came crashing down on the classroom floor. The teacher had his hair in a ponytail, and had a scar on his face that ran across his face, right at the bridge of his nose. Yes, can I help you, young man? As you can tell, we are in the middle of class and do not have much time to spare. I took out the letter written by the old man, and I was angry enough to make a ball with the letter as I wrapped it around the apple, and I threw it at him. He, of course, caught it like it was nothing major, opened the letter and began to eat the apple as he read the letter. The second he got to the part where he saw the signature he looked at me. He told me to come stand near him. I am sorry, Naruto, I was not told I would have a new addition to my classroom. Class 1 have some news before we continue our lesson. The young man near me is our new classmate. His name is Naruto Uzumaki. Please make him feel welcomed. As for what we have covered, I am sure you will catch up in no time, or I could ask our class representative to help you to catch up. At that point a pink-haired girl stood up from her seat. I would not give that thing a bucket of piss if he caught on fire. You either catch up on your own or fail. Don't expect any favors from me. I guess this would constitute the warm welcome I just heard about. It's not like I would ever depend on them in the first place. I waited till my teacher actually assigned me a seat, and wouldn't you know it, it looks like I was given a seat in the middle row of the class. I didn't want to make a scene, so I decided to walk towards the seat, but apparently someone tried to trip me up and cause me to fall. Instead, I gave the idiot a sharp kick to the leg and walked over to my seat. I sat down and began to listen to the lecture I had interrupted. If I had to describe the lecture in one word, that word would be boring. I am kidding, it was also inaccurate. I didn't want to disrespect my teacher, so I kept quiet about the glaring mistakes he made in his lecture. The history I knew better than he did, and the theory was nothing that you would call surprising. Yes, it really pays off to have spent the previous night reading up on things that have been either discovered or found since my last time living as the emperor of my domain. I didn't like how my beloved was portrayed, however, and I felt a little pride in what my eldest was said to have done. After the lectures, we were told that we would have practical lessons with another teacher. Iruka introduced his fellow teacher as Mizuki, and he would be the teacher in charge of teaching practical skills. I threw him another apple, and in contrast to Iruka, he glared at me and then at the apple, before he threw it back at me. I heard him say that he would not eat anything I could have easily poisoned, or maybe he was saying that my touch was poisonous. I couldn't hear him very well since he whispered what he said. I didn't care. I took out a kunai and began to eat the apple as he began his lecture on practical skills. He even showed up how to throw a weapon. everything from shuriken to kunai as a matter of fact. I found his lecture held quite a few hidden insults being thrown at me. I guess I know which portion of the class one will not do so well at. The guy that sits right next to me in class was a guy wearing glasses and was not someone that you would accuse of being one that liked to chat. His name was Shino, or so the bugs that were in him told me. The guy seating behind me was a guy that was named Sasuke, and from the way people treated him he was the crown prince of this village, and he acted like he expected it. The other guy that was seating right next to me, with what I call a pineapple-looking haircut, was if anything by my opinion on how he behaved a slacker. The seating arrangement did not change even in the open field where our practical lesson would happen. I, of course, was singled out and asked to throw some kunai at the targets that Mizuki pointed at. He probably expected to humiliate me, and make it look like I was inept. I threw all the kunai he handed to me, in such a way that they hit the target's dead center. The targets were dummies and each dummy had circles carved on the surface. It was a circle that showed where the most vital points to hit on the human body. I, of course, knew this very well. I fought in a war after all, and killing an enemy was certainly not something I was unfamiliar with. Mizuki called it beginner's luck. Told me to sit down and called another student. The next one after I was the pink-haired woman that had been ever so kind to me before. She, of course, missed every single of her targets. I mean the woman who I came to know as Sakura missed the targets because her kunai didn't even reach the targets. She did complain that throwing the kunai at a target at such distance was harming her fingernails. I wanted to tell her that this was a ninja academy, that if she was so concerned with her looks, that maybe she should enroll in a modeling academy instead. I didn't, of course, because that would be lowering myself to her level. The woman who sits right next to Sakura was a girl that she clearly didn't like Sakura, even more than I did. As a matter of fact, Sakura tried to trip her and cause her to fall. Her name was Ino, and unlike Sakura, she actually managed to hit 3 of the targets Mizuki was pointing at. I don't know why I did it. One guess is that these two were so pathetic that I actually felt sorry for them. I walked over between the glaring match between Ino and Sakura. I looked at them both and they stopped glaring at each other and chose to focus their glares on me. Girls, it is all a matter of measuring where and how strong is the wind, and when you feel it's the right time, the time of least wind resistance, throw it while the side is flat. The throw is just a matter of putting enough strength on your wrist. They actually managed to agree on something. I thought the world was going to explode when I saw that happen. They both agreed that I was full of it, and I should shove my useless and unwanted words straight up my rear end. Well, I was feeling much better after that exchange of grateful and caring words. That pretty much told me any attempts to help those two was wasted. I decided that since they didn't particularly appreciate my advice, I would let them learn on their own. I was not going to make this mistake again in a hurry. This was pretty much how it was in my practical lesson. I answered a question, I was ignored or insulted, I threw something I was told it was a miss, even if the weapon I threw was sticking right on the target, and my sparring matches felt more like I was spanking my ill-mannered child than actually feel like an actual fight. Seeing that my chances to actually learn something was negligible at best, I decided from my first day in class, that the only actual alternative was for me to study at my own pace, not rely on my teachers, and I would simply use the time in class to do something I will need after all the learning I needed to do on my own, and that takes a nap. The librarian pretty much told me that a thing like me should stay away from something as valuable as the books in the building. The second that she actually called me a demon when I didn't turn around and leave, that is when I took a kunai from my hip pouch and I slit her throat from ear to ear. I let the body hit the floor and left her to bleed to death. I simply didn't have the time nor wanted to waste any more time on stupid people that break the law. This caused the people in the library to scream and take off running away from the building, like the building was on fire. Actually, that gave me a lot of privacy, and since I was the only person there, I seem to remember something called the shadow clone jutsu. I used it and sent 12 of these shadow clones to pick up and read books in the library. I had the foresight of actually telling the clones to change form to look like an ordinary ninja. I was actually enjoying a great book about poisons when the old man decided to come down to the library. He carefully stepped over the dead body of the librarian. I heard him mutter something and I looked away from the book, to look at him. Naruto, was it really necessary to kill this woman? I began to shake my head at the sheer stupidity of that question. He wrote the law and even made it so that people that called me demon would be punished, a death penalty in fact. Why is he so surprised that I actually upheld his law? She broke the law, and I punished her according to the law. Now if you will excuse me Lord Hokage, I had a lousy day at the academy, and I rather get some actual learning done before the day ends. This book about poisons and poison antidotes is fascinating. I really wish I could go to Suna and be able to talk with the author. I figured that since he fought in the Second Ninja World War, he would not find my praise of a Suna ninja, a master in the puppeteer division no less, very much to his liking. He actually sat down on an empty chair right next to me. I am sure Lady Chio will find your comments on her book to be quite flattering. Now that you said that, mind telling me what happened in the academy to make your current foul mood? I looked at him and began to shake my head at him. I was not in a foul mood at all. Bored to tears maybe, but how is that me being in a foul mood? Let's see, the staff pretty much told me to get lost. I had to knock down the door to my classroom for my teacher to even notice that I had been knocking on the door. My seat is right between a slacker, an emo, and a boy who spends more time reading about bugs than actually pay attention in class. To top it all, my practical lesson was impractical and I was insulted by my fellow classmates throughout the lesson. I looked at him and he was just nodding his head. So you see, I have absolutely no reason to have any negative reaction to the things that happened to me at all. I had a sunny day of friendships, kind words, considerate teachers, and to make matters even better, a very nice and helpful librarian that was more than willing to help me. Now if you will excuse me, I need to study some things that I will never actually manage to learn in that place. Now he took the book from my hands and looked at me. So that is what happened. Look Naruto, while you grow up, you have to learn to deal with people that you don't like or can't get along with. It's just a matter of life. You could have simply walked out of the library and come to my office, told me, and I would have taken care of the situation. The only difference is that poor woman would still be alive. I looked at him and began shaking my head. If I did that, and not punish the person who broke the law, your law becomes more of a suggestion than an actual law. You want me to bring the person or people to you. It's simple. Change the law and write that instead of saying, and I quote, those that are found breaking this law are to be executed on the spot. I was only obeying the law, Lord Hokage. I don't see where the problem is. Can I have the book back? He just handed me the book and with a smile, he said, if in fact, change the law and said that I had to passionately kiss a person who called me a demon, would I actually do it? I had no recourse but to tell him yes, I would. I would also need to find some strong mouthwash to get the disgusting taste out of my mouth. You know Naruto, the reason why we have actual teachers is that students don't know what they need to study. What exactly are you using as a guide in your studies? I looked at him and smiled as he handed me back the book I was reading. I don't need a guide. I guess you could say I am a little more mature than most of my classmates. I know exactly what I need to know. He began to laugh and continued to sit down right next to me and watched me read, book after book. He sometimes even took some of the books and asked me why I picked those books. I didn't think me going to the library would end up like this, a supervised reading session, supervised by the Hokage no less. I honestly hope that he does not change the punishment to something like having me kiss the offender. As far as I remember, thanks to observing that so-called tailed beast, I regained some of my memories with my beloved wife, and I hope that never happens. Kaguya is the love of my life, but that doesn't mean she doesn't get nasty when she thinks a woman is making romantic advances on me. I guess even with a lifetime of experience I can still be a little naive. I mean, after the first year I was pretty much given the lowest grades possible. I actually answered the questions on the exam and made perfect scores in the practical exam, or as far I was aware I should be the top in my class, but no dead last. The second year I thought that maybe the first was just a mistake, Everyone can make mistakes after all, but no, once again I was dead last. After that I began to see a pattern. It doesn't take long for you to realize that someone was either messing with my exams, or the grading was not as ethical as it should be. At that point I no longer cared what the teachers said about our grades or the titles they would give. I took naps in class, did my bare minimum in practical skills, and spent all my energy reading and practicing out in the forest of death. Honestly, the creatures in that forest treated me better than most humans in the village. I had friends who I could talk with, we shared jokes, and even helped a few of their mates have their children, which of course were adorable. This went on until my last year. I knew that I would eventually plan to leave the village, so I made an effort to keep my interactions with my fellow classmates civil but not what you would call sociable. I kept the interactions with my fellow classmates to a bare minimum. I knew that if I started to form friendships, this would make leaving that much more difficult. In truth, it was not very hard to do actually. They avoided me like I was born with an incurable illness, and I have to admit that Sakura and Ino with their gossiping made the whole situation easier. I was not about to thank them, but they did help me even if they did not intend to help me. I was expecting that on my last grade one would be given the title of dead last once again. I was secretly dreading the very idea, to think that I would have to be on a team with people I can barely stand, to serve and protect this place that made my life such a hell. I guess I should not be that negative. Hell wouldn't be as bad as the village they called Konoha. I had another name for it, but I rather not say it. You can't imagine my relief when they began to call the names of my classmates and each one of them walked over to the large table and picked up their leaf headband. Everyone got a headband but me. It took some real discipline and control for me not to jump up from my seat in sheer joy. I went to the front of the academy and hanging from one of the large trees was a swing set. I decided that since I would never swing on that thing ever again, I decided to sit on it. I began to think about what I would plan to do next. I knew that I needed to collect the other pieces of my soul, and maybe one day finally is reunited with me, beloved wife. I looked up and saw the moon shine through the clear sky. One day we will be together again, my love, and this time nobody will separate us again. I heard a person walk near me, and as he got near I looked at him. It was Mizuki. What could he possibly want with me? I am sorry, Naruto. I know you always do your best in my lessons. You really wanted to graduate, didn't you? I know that it must feel unfair, but you have to realize that if you don't have the skills to be a ninja, it would be sending you to your suicide if we let you graduate. I looked at him. He must think I am an idiot for even trying to fool me with this fake show of sympathy. You know, Naruto, if you actually do something that proves to everyone that you do have the skills, I can actually give you that headband and you can graduate. Ninjas sometimes must steal scrolls from enemy bases. All you have to do is go into the Hokage's office and without anyone noticing steal the large red scroll in the wall near his desk. You go to the old hunting cabin in the woods, you know the one, and I learn a single jutsu from that scroll. I will meet you and you can show it to me. I will let you graduate if you can do that. I began to nod my head. I got up and began to let the fool think he had succeeded in tricking me. One of the things I gained from absorbing the Nine Tails was the memories he possessed, and one of the memories pretty much told me I was not stealing anything at all. The Forbidden Scroll, as they call it, was initially property of the Uzumaki clan. In fact, most of the things in it were things the Uzumaki clan developed. I decided to leave a note for the old man. I wrote that I was finally sick and tired of his village's constant mistreatment, discrimination, and vandalizing my home. I mean, writing hate messages in manure became the norm, and I got tired of using a water and wind jutsu to clean my walls. I wrote that I was taking my clan's property, and since I was not a ninja of his village, he could not even put me in the bingo book. I wrote my fond farewells for him, Uruka, and the two people that were nice to me, the people that owned the only place I could buy food in. Ichiraku Ramen was called. I went through the village and sure enough, the Hokage didn't like the sound of things. He sent every Junin and Chunin available after me. I don't care how many fools he sent after me. If he thought that these people were going to catch me, I would say his age was definitely starting to show. As I reached the cabin, Mizuki was already waiting for me. I can't believe how stupid you can be. You actually believed that stuff about me letting you graduate. I mean, come on. Nobody in the village wants you to be anything other than a corpse. I am going to tell you why that is before I kill you and take that scroll for myself. He began to reach for the Fuma shuriken that he had strapped on his back. Iruka probably told you that the fourth Hokage actually killed the Nine Tails, but that is a lie. The Nine Tails is a being of pure chakra, and thus cannot be killed. He was sealed inside a newborn, you Naruto. You are the Nine Tails, the one that killed so many of our village when you attacked my village demon, the one that killed my parents and made me and Iruka orphans. I looked at him as the nothing he really was. You call that news? Well, since we are being honest here, Mizuki, I didn't buy your little lie at all. I am simply reclaiming Uzumaki property, and you think I was sad that I didn't graduate? You are an even bigger fool than I thought. I was absolutely overjoyed that I didn't graduate. I mean, Mizuki, it took you 6 years to finally fail me. Can you imagine what life would be if I had graduated? He stopped reaching for the Fuma shuriken as I said that, so I decided to continue. Good thing I had a few dozen shadow clones hiding around us. If I had graduated, I would be placed on a genin team, and I would have to spend the rest of my life protecting Konoha. Can you imagine how miserable my life would be? Me having to defend that shithole for the rest of my days. You have any idea how much it took to keep from jumping out of my seat in sheer joy after Iruka told me I failed? Had you told me that and I could show how I really felt, I would hug you. That is how happy I was. I am not a ninja, so they can't place me in the bingo book, or send Hunter Ninja after me. You fail me, you think you actually harmed me. I could not keep it in any longer. I began laughing like an absolute maniac. I was just so happy that I could not contain it anymore. You think I would want to spend my life defending that dump? I can't thank you enough, Mizuki. You failing me set me free. I am free at long last. Mizuki looked at me and began laughing too. Well, if you feel that grateful, demon, why don't you just give me the forbidden scroll as a thank you present? I guess this idiot will never realize that I am not the little punk he thinks I am. If he honestly thinks I am handing him over this scroll, he is beyond delusional. He is crazy. I looked at him with a sneer and I activated my eyes, which pretty much told all the shadow clones around us to get ready to strike. This is Uzumaki property, you fool. You think I will let you have it? I was not willing to let that dump you used to call a village keep it. Do you want it? You are going to have to take from my cold dead fingers. He jumped and threw the Fuma shuriken. I caught it like it was next to nothing, and let's face it, to me it took next to nothing to do something this simple. I faced far worse than this. I began to twirl the large shuriken in my hand and smiled at him. You are going to have to do better than that, Mizuki. He began screaming that I was a useless punk, that I would never be able to defeat him. You are a punk, not even a genin. I am a chunin. It would take an army for you to defeat a ninja of my caliber. I took the Fuma shuriken and placed it inside a seal I had carved on my belt. Funny you should say that. You want an army? Guys, one roasted idiot if you please, and make sure you leave a copy of the scroll after you get done with him. All the shadow clones came out of hiding and began throwing wind and fire jutsu at him. The area where Mizuki was standing became a flash furnace. The heat was so severe that trees began to burn till there was nothing but ashes, and Mizuki's remains blew away in the wind. The only thing left was his headband. They placed a large scroll like the Forbidden Scroll and I began to leave the area. Did Orochimaru really think I was that gullible? As soon as I was a few hundred feet away from the place my shadow clones placed the scroll, a large explosion was heard. That Orochimaru must think I didn't notice him hiding in that tree. I was friends with the Serpent Clan, the clan he signed their summoning contract. Some of them told me about Orochimaru's desire to possess this scroll. In reality, that dump should be grateful that I took the scroll. Orochimaru more than likely would continue to try and take the scroll and end up killing their precious Hokage. I once again was expecting too much from that village. My plan was simple. I would go away from Konoha and go to the place I knew two more of the pieces of my soul was. I had two so-called tailed beasts. I was finally free to begin my hunt to reclaim the pieces of my soul, and nothing was going to stop me. I was going to be together with my beloved, no matter the risk, no matter the difficulties ahead. The trip to Iowa was productive as I kept killing one bandit group after another. I even managed to repair some of my clothes and gear with the stuff the bandits had. My clothes had changed enough that the people of the village would never even be able to tell it was me anymore. My black clothes were switched for leather the color of dried blood, my top consisted of a hooded jacket with black streaks, and on my face was a dark red mask that hid my face, to the point that they could not see my face at all. As I kept going towards Iowa, I kept hearing that bandit groups began talking about me. They made me sound like some unnatural monster that loved to prey on them, to devour human flesh, and even their souls. If the bandits began to spread rumors about me, must mean they were actually pretty scared of me, and fear was always a good tool to use when an enemy was afraid they make mistakes, and when they make that kind of mistakes it became easy for me to finish them off. I looked at the gates and decided to knock on the massive gates. Nobody came. I shouted a few times and again nobody came. I did that for a few minutes and basically got tired of walking outside the gates. If they wanted to kill me, they were doing a lousy job at it. I decided to simply use an earth jutsu and went down the ground and began to travel through the bedrock. The only thing I had was this massive chakra signature that seemed to be floating inside a room. I came out of the ground and began to walk up the wall that was hidden by the shadow the buildings made as the sun began to set. I made it up to the window of the room I was sensing the chakra, and without any time to waste I substituted myself with a piece of paper that looked like an empty lunchbox. I turned around to find the leering eyes of Onoki, the Tsuchikage, looking at me with a great deal of both surprise and anger. So what exactly did you want coming in here? Try and kill me. You know I may be old, but I have not been a cage all this time simply because there was no one else to take this hat. I am more than capable of taking care of a punk like you, so tell me what you came here to do and maybe, just maybe you will get to live. I asked if I could sit down first. He did tell me that it would make little to no difference, so he allowed me to sit down. Thank you very much, Tsuchikage. I had a long trip getting to your village only to have your village gate guards ignore me. My feet were aching and I thank you for letting me sit down. He floated down to his seat and began laughing as he finished hearing what I said. So you mean to tell me you knocked, and tried to enter the village like a civilized person, and when you got tired of being ignored you came like this? You didn't come to kill me. Since you know who I am, and wanted to get in this village this badly, mind telling me what you wanted in my village? I looked at him and smiled. Actually I came to meet you. You see, I finally got out of that prison. I prefer to call it a shithole, that most people call Konoha. I was pretty much hated in that dump, and even though I have the skills to be a ninja, they flat out flunked me out of the academy. I need a place to live, a place to earn a living, and much nicer surroundings. Figured that since this village pretty much feel the same thing I feel about Konoha, we could become fast friends, even welcome me with open arms. He began to laugh and agreed with my description of Konoha. He floated near me, and over his own desk. So you hate that place too? Mind telling me why would I welcome you with open arms? What exactly makes you so special? I looked at him and smiled. I am the son of your most hated enemy, the fourth Hokage, the yellow flash of Konoha, and the most deadly Anbu in that dump, the red habanero, the red fox Anbu. I thought that you might want a person who was a seal master and could do the flight of the thunder god. He threw a kunai at me trying to kill me. I threw one myself and blocked his kunai, and why shouldn't I kill you? I couldn't help but to laugh. I told him because we feel the same about Konoha, we both hated the place. I heard Onoki laughing and looked at him. I tried my best to look as serious as I could. Give me a break. Why would the son of the fourth Hokage hate the village his own father died defending? Your mother was the single most loyal Anbu they ever had. You want me to believe you? You are going to have to explain that. I couldn't help but shake my head. You keep calling that place a village. To me it was the worst prison I ever heard of. I was placed in an orphanage where the people in charge wanted to kill me. I had to fight and kill mobs of people that tried to murder me. the stores charged me 10 to 20 times the normal price. Well, all except one. I passed the exams and yet they have the nerve to mess with my answers and tell me I am the dumbest one in the class. I looked at him as he sat down on his desk. To me, that place was filled with people that either wanted me to kill me or starve me to death. What does it say to you that the beast in a forest near that place practically is the only ones that were friendly with me? I hunted and gathered my gear, my food, and slept in a dump worse than the cheapest whorehouse. Now you tell me, if you lived like I did, would you be loyal to that place or hate it? From the look he was giving me, I could tell Onoki finally understood why I wanted to join his village. Alright kid, I got it. Yes, if my village treated me like that I would hate them. So tell me, if you had to fight and kill ninja from that village, how would you handle that? I honestly thought the question was kind of stupid. I would use either my skills, my weapons, poison or explosives. You think I would be merciful to that bunch? Give me a break. I probably would use the flight of the Thunder God, and kill a battalion of them and treat them like they treated me, like garbage. Onoki began to nod his head. Actually, that would also make me quite happy too. To see you use the skill that causes my village so many died during the last war, against the village who used it against us, that would be quite the sight indeed. You are going to have to take a test to find out what rank I should give you. He looked at me and began shaking his head for a little bit, and because you come from that dump, your test will have to be harder than anyone else. You will fight in a 2 versus 1 fight, you against both of my village's toughest fighters, the Jinchuriki of this village in fact. I looked at him and could not believe my luck. Alright, I will fight them. But should both of them lose something during the fight, or I manage to take anything from them, it's mine and they are not getting it back. Deal. He laughed and said if they lost anything to a punk like me, they were not worthy to have it, so I would be more than welcome to keep whatever I got from them. The fight would be in the arena where they held their Chunin exams. Unlike most other places, this village held an all-out tournament to determine who can be Chunin, and what is worse, it was a free-for-all. That is right, 50 men and women fighting at the same time. I had to admit this arena was quite the sight. As I looked at it, 2 men showed up. They both looked at me like the people in Konoha did, like I was nothing more than something nasty they had to scrape off the bottom of their shoes. So you are our opponent. I am Roshi, and the man over there is Han. Now what should we inscribe on your tombstone? These punks sure never learned to respect their elders, it seems. I always felt that I did a horrible job raising my 2 boys, but after everything I've been through, my wife will agree, we actually did a pretty good job as being parents. You can call me Naruto, Naruto Uzumaki, or if you prefer to be poetic, I am the infernal flame that dances on the graves of my enemies. Now, if the introductions are over, do we start our fight or do you want to bore me to death? Onoki finally showed up, and without even a moment's notice the stands were already full. With a smile he screamed for the fight to start. I threw my kunai at my 2 opponents and they both laughed as they missed. The field had dozens of kunai sticking all over the arena floor. As I saw my stage was set, I decided to begin my real attack. Using the flight of the Thunder God, I evaded the attack of one, countered it and knocked him out. And when Han tried to put me in a genjutsu, I turned around and used my Tsukuyomi against him. I had him crucified to a metal cross, and he would not be able to break free in a million years. I used this opportunity to enter his mind and take back one of the pieces of my soul. He fainted as soon as the chakra from the tailed beast was no longer flowing through him. I guess the kid actually depended a little too much on the tailed beast after all. Once he was out, Onoki actually used a technique that made the unconscious Han float out of the arena, and that left me with just me and Roshi. I did the same thing again. He tried to use that large mace he was using against me, and when he was near I kicked him hard enough to knock him out, or so I tried. He instead dropped the mace and tried to break my neck. I instead held him by his throat, and by the time I entered his mind, he was helpless to do anything. He screamed and yelled inside his own mind as I broke the pathetic seal and took back another part of my soul. I was much stronger thanks to having recovered 2 more pieces of my soul, and I had a lot more experience and knowledge thanks to the things the two-tailed beasts learned since I was cut into pieces by my son. As I exited him, Roshi looked at me and could not believe what he saw. Just who in the world are you, kid? I told him that we were done with the introductions. I told him the truth when he asked me the first time. I am the infernal flame that dances on the graves of my enemies. The two were knocked out, and since Onoki was not saying anything to end the fight, I took a kunai from the ground and began to walk to where Roshi was. As I placed my kunai at his throat, Onoki finally realized he better say something. Wow. Hold it. The fight is over. You pass. Don't need to kill them to get your point across that you are skilled. What I want to know, why is it that they are still unconscious, and why do you feel a whole lot different than when the fight began? It is almost like your chakra reserves grew instantly. I looked at Onoki and could not help but to shake my head. I told you that anything they lost during the fight, it was mine to keep. Let's just say they don't really need those seals anymore. As my chakra growing, that is incorrect. It was restored by a fraction of what it once was. He floated to me and to where the two men were still unconscious. Indeed, they were suffering from severe chakra exhaustion. I sense there is a story behind what you just said, but since you beat these two, I guess you are Junin material, alright. Now, why don't you come with me to my office and I can get you registered, give you our village headband, and you can tell me that story while we figure what you will do from now on. I was feeling generous. Might as well tell the Tsuchikage the truth. He will need to feel that he can trust me if I am ever going to get his help to get those 6 other pieces of my soul back. As we walked, her secretary threw at me the headband, and her for some reason didn't seem that happy with me at all. I walked in and Onoki floated towards his seat and sat down. I sat down on my seat and waiting for him to get comfortable. So how is it that you can contain 3 tail beasts? Don't even deny it. We once tried to kidnap Kushina Uzumaki to take the 9 tails from Konoha. So how can you contain 3-tailed beasts? Our Jinchuriki had trouble enough with 1. I looked at him and asked him if I could get myself some of that tea that was on his desk. He said I could. I took a cup of it and smelled it. Sort of reminded me of the tea my wife used to make when I was feeling anxious, actually. Well, you are wrong in many assumptions. First off, as my age, I am a lot older than you may think. I am the father of the one you called the Sage of the 6 Paths and his brother. As to me having 3-tailed beasts inside me, that is wrong too. I simply reabsorbed 3 pieces of my soul. My eldest son trapped my wife on the thing you called the moon, and he cut me into 10 pieces. To you, those 9-tailed beasts are weapons that the Sage of the 6 Paths created, but in reality, they are all me. Pieces of my soul to be exact. Every time I absorb one, I regain some of my memories, chakra, and skills. Onoki looked at me and began to almost look at me with a sympathetic look on his face. Must be tough living knowing your own son did something that horrible to you. I guess it works for our benefit. Everyone else who looks at you will think that you are just some punk. They will underestimate your abilities. Speaking of which, what do you think you can do for this your village? I could not help but to laugh as he said that. Well, I could join the Anbu, I could go out and work as a hunter, or I could take 3 kids and become a Junin instructor. I got hundreds of years of experience, and having 3 kids might remind me of the good times when I was a father to my 2 sons. He laughed as he served himself a cup of the same tea I was drinking. I know the feeling all too well. I used to be a father too, once upon a time. A person with your experience and strength would be wasted in Anbu or as a hunter. Instead, I think you are right, you would be better as a Junin instructor. As it happens, a class of kids is graduating from the academy tomorrow. I looked at him and he stopped sipping his tea. I will take those 3 kids, and teach them harshly but fairly. I will not accept excuses or slackers. Keep that in mind when you assign those kids to me. Being a ninja is not for the weak, the lazy, or the unprepared. He began to laugh as he began drinking his tea again. It seems we will get along rather well. It is nice to meet a person after my own heart. Who knows, maybe you will find a lovely young lady and have some kids here. I asked where was I going to live. He threw at me a key and a piece of paper with an address. I got up from my seat and began to walk towards the exit. I am sure this village has some beautiful young ladies, Lord Tsuchikage, but I am already spoken for. My lovely wife Kaguya is waiting for me, maybe one day we will be able to settle and build a home here. I walked out of the office with the headband tied firmly on my head, and I looked at the secretary still glaring at me. For some odd reason, this secretary felt like I should know her for some reason. I got to admit that he walked towards the apartment was interesting, to say the least. I found several grocery stores with rather nice prices, an equipment shop that had all the tags and healing supplies I would need, the weapons shop was a sight to see, with all those weapons and armors hanging from the racks. I walked over to the apartment building and realized that the key was just to enter the building. Every apartment had this square metal plate right beneath where the number was. I walked over to the one that was written on the note and touched it, and sure enough, I felt like something had pricked me with a few needles. I looked down and saw the plate had indeed sent 3 needles into my hand and retracted into the plate. I touched the plate again and the door opened the second that I sent chakra to the plate. Well, at least I know my things will be secure, and I will be able to sleep without anyone bothering me. Just how long are you going to follow me without even bothering to introduce yourself? I felt someone behind me as she came straight out of the ground. How long have you known I was following you? I didn't bother turning around, I just walked inside my apartment, since I left the building where the Tsuchikage's office is located. Are you going to tell me who you are? Or do I have to take that information from your mind the hard way? She began to laugh as I said that, and I mean really laugh. Her form changed to reveal something odd. She looked like a mixture between a Venus flytrap and a woman. Half her body that looked like a human was white and the other half was black. My name is Zetsu, and I came here to steal those 2-tailed beasts that you took from Han and Roshi. You stole my prey, why shouldn't I be angry? I don't know how you did it, Uzumaki, but I will give you a chance to give them to me, and the 9 tails or I will kill you. I looked at her and began shaking my head. I guess you didn't believe the story I told Onoki then. Kurama, Son Goku and Kokuo don't exist anymore, so you can't have them, they are back to where they came from, me. I don't know who sent you after the pieces of my soul and I don't care. I will regain all the pieces of my soul. I will use my power to free my beloved wife from that prison they call the moon, and I will destroy anyone or anything that tries to get in my way of achieving my goal. My beloved Kaguya shall be free, we will be together again, and nothing will stop me from achieving that, not even you. She looked at me and began to laugh. If you are the husband of the rabbit goddess, then tell me something only the two of you would know. I walked over to the kitchen and sat down on a chair in the dining room. A thing only I and my wife would know. Well, there was something nobody knew. When my wife was pregnant with our 2 sons, she had a strange food craving. She wanted hard-boiled eggs pickled in honey and served with this cream made out of mustard seeds. That is when she immediately pulled me up from my seat and hugged me. I was caught completely by surprise and tried to push her away from me till I hear her cry. It is nice to finally meet you, Daddy. What the bloody hell? This person threatened to kill me and now she was calling me Daddy. Mother will be very happy to hear that you are still faithful to her after your rebirth. You don't need to worry about me, Dad. I am working with a group that I am using to do exactly what you are trying to do, to free Mom from the moon. She walked away from me and changed form again to look like the secretary. I often leave a shadow clone to cover for me when I go looking for the other tailed beasts. Don't you worry, Daddy, I will help you get back those pieces my elder brother cut from you. You will find gear, clothing and other things in that closet over there. Don't you worry, Dad, I will keep your secret, you are safe with me. In the next morning, I was dressed in my Junin armor, I had my headband tied on my head, and I had a quick and easy breakfast. I jumped out of the window in the apartment building and began jumping from roof to roof till I reached the building where I was going, the academy. Onoki was waiting for me on the little terrace that was near the roof of the academy. I jumped from one tree branch to get to it and he was smiling at me as I landed near him. Eager to meet your charges, I see. I can't fault you. I was pretty nervous when I became an instructor long ago. Don't worry. Nobody here will know that you were born in that dumb. I looked at him and nodded my head. So the graduation is taking place and I gather you are here to give the congratulatory speech, Lord Tsuchikage. He began laughing as he heard me say that and began nodding as I waited for his response. Indeed, I am Naruto. It is a tradition in our village for me to assign new genin into their teams. This makes them realize that from now on, I am the one that has control over their lives, and they are under my complete authority. I could not help but feel like I was getting the first lecture instead of the kids who just happened to have graduated. You Naruto will have an extra difficulty that the other instructors do not have. The genin in your squad is pretty much young and so are you in appearance, but they will not know the truth. I would not put it past them to say that you are either the son of their instructor or a punk pretending and putting on airs. They don't know the things I know, and such they will not take your authority seriously thinking you are the same as them. My instructors have complete authority over their charges, and as such their lives are your responsibility. Try to keep them alive, for the good of our village. I looked at him and he stopped talking. I will train them, but if you expect me to go easy on them, then you are mistaken. I will prepare them for war, I will teach them to be ready for anything, and if that means they will get a few bruises, well, that is what it takes. In fact, think a little test is in order. Have you ever heard of the infamous bell test? Onoki looked at me as he began floating in the air. I do know some of the details of that test. It was invented by a Hokage to test teamwork. I think there is a very high chance that the genin assigned to you will fail. I told him it was better that they failed the test, than to have to face an enemy unprepared. With my test, I told him, they go back to the academy for a year, but an enemy will never show them that much mercy. I told him in real life if they fail they could very well die or worse. I approve of the test then. I got to tell you Naruto, I almost feel sorry for the kids I assigned to be in your squad. He began floating down to the entrance of the academy and I saw him enter the building. I sat down on a bench on the terrace and waited for my team to show up. I kept thinking that if I had actually graduated in Konoha I would probably be the one being assigned to a team, much like the kids assigned to me. I looked at the door, and I could see the handle move as the door opened. A young man, and two young women came through the door and were shocked to see me. So you lot are my team. Come on kids, sit closer to me, I don't bite. The three genin came and sat on benches near where I was seated. They actually kept their distance from me and I could see the confusion in their eyes. I guess a brief introduction is necessary. Let me give you an example. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I have a few things I like. I have a lot of things I don't like and my dreams are obviously none of your business. The look they gave me the second I finished my introduction practically screamed one thing. They were all thinking that the only thing they got was my name. Alright, you with a scowl, you're next. He looked at me and began shaking his head. My name is Homura, Kenshin Homura. I like to train and practice with my family's style of swordsmanship. I dislike cowards and crooks. My dream is to make my family proud. I then pointed at the person next to Kenshin. She got up and looked at me. My name is Karara Homura. The guy over there is my twin brother. I like to learn new things every day, cook, and keep my gear in good shape. I dislike sexist creeps that think that I am weak because I happen to be a girl. My dream is to become an instructor of the best genin team in our village. The last genin looked at me and got up. She didn't wait for me to tell her she was next. Someone was a little eager to get to the training, it seems. That was always a good sign for me. I am Sengo Hamashiri. I like to train and fight. I hate people that slack off and don't take me seriously. My dream is to become the commander of the Anbu division of our village. I had to admit I got to know them rather well from the way they behaved and what they said. Their introductions told me a great deal, but their body language told me in which way to interpret what they said. Had I been a regular guy, the first would have missed much, but thanks to the experience I already possess, they were practically open books to me. Good introductions. Let's get down to business, shall we? Tomorrow we will meet at that field over there. I got up and pointed at a field that looked like it was used for practice and training. the training dummies made the field easy to identify. You each will take a single test from me. The test is to see how ready you are to begin serving our village and the Lord Tsuchikage. I would highly suggest that you skip breakfast tomorrow. This exam is not going to be easy, and if you eat breakfast, this exam might cause you to throw up. Any questions? Sengo was the first to raise her hand. I nodded my head, telling her that she could ask her question. When are we going to hear your real introduction, instructor? We would like to know your likes, dislikes, and dreams for the future as well. I looked at her and saw that she was already trying to behave like we are equals, and to see how far they could get away with. I looked at her and then at the others. Let me add a little incentive to this test. If you pass the test tomorrow, I shall do just that, but only if you pass. I will meet you on that field at 6 in the morning. You better not be late or you shall be punished. I shall tell you the details of the exam when we meet tomorrow. That is all. Dismissed. They all turned around and began to walk towards the door, and I sent chakra through my ears and began to listen to them talk as they walked down the ladder towards the ground floor of the academy. It seems they were complaining a lot more than they dared when they were in front of me. They complained about how young I looked, and one even said that I clearly was not that experienced at all. It seems the twins don't have faith in my abilities, or the fact they think I am no better than they are. Sengo told them to shut up, that they would learn how strong I was when they met me on the field. She said that actions speak louder than words, and no amount of complaining was going to change that. They were just assigned to me, and I already have 2 students who clearly have no faith in my ability to lead them, and 1 student who pretty much was going to be the one we actually would see eye to eye on things. I was up and early waiting for my students on the practice field. I looked at the clock that was a few meters away from the field and they were 10 minutes late. I could only think that they better have a good excuse for being late. As the clock reached 6:30, they actually showed up. I tried my best to smile, but I will not lie, I was really quite angry. They saw me and walked over to where I was. Did they think the time was a suggestion? Well, now that everyone is here, I shall explain your test. I took out 2 bells from my belt utility pouch, and held them in the air. The test is very simple. Get these 2 bells from me by any means possible. Those who get a bell pass, the one without one fails. I was going to be merciful and say that if you managed to get the bells at all, you would pass, but after making me wait this long, without an apology or reason for your delay, I had 30 minutes to rethink my exam. They all began looking quite nervous. I also happened to hear every single thing you said walking down the stairs in the academy building. So after thinking about these 2 incidents, I decided to make my exam much harsher than I had initially planned. I had planned to send the failing student back for another year at the academy, but after what you said in this, well, I decided we don't need dead weight around here, so instead I am going to kill the one that fails. Just as I predicted, they all began screaming that it would not be fair and that I could not get away with killing any of them. I waited for them to be quiet. I have complete authority over you 3, which means I can kill you all. The work of a ninja is bloody, violent, and harsh. We are not heroes, we fight and die for our village and our cage. You have 30 minutes, and the time started when I first said bell. I actually had a shadow clone tell them all this. And now that he finished, it disappeared in a cloud of gray smoke. They must think it was a smoke screen. I had taken a spot to look at them and listen what they had to say, far enough for me to listen, and far enough so that they would not detect me. Great. Just great. You had to say those things yesterday, didn't you, brother? Guess what? He might look our age, but the guy looked dead serious when he said he was going to kill one of us, and he was looking at me when he said it. I hope you are happy. Boy, did Kasara have a good set of lungs in her, and you took longer to get ready. Don't cry to me. He was upset that we were late, sister. I told you we should be there 30 minutes early, but no, what did you scream at me from inside the bath? Girls take longer to get ready. I hate to say it, but Kenshin actually had a point. Too bad that point was on top of his head. Look, he was placed in charge of us, so he must be a Junin. But he is still a guy. He must be as horny as the rest of the guys in our class. So here is what I suggest. me and Kasara here will try to find him, seduce him, and while we keep him busy, you Kenshin take the bells. Whistle when you got them, and then we will run away from him. He will chase us and we will toss the bells between each other. When the time runs out, he will have to pass us. Kasara probably is nodding her head. Why go through all that? Why don't we simply knock him out? Again, Kenshin had no faith in my abilities, it seems. Because we are not the worst student in our class, you or brother the guy is a Junin. If we don't work together we have no chance against him. Great plan Sango, but how do we seduce him? We aren't wearing things that would be good for that sort of thing. Kenshin began laughing. You guys got all you need for that. What does a horny teenager like more than a little T&A? I heard him get slapped by the two women in his team. Had I been a normal teenager I would have agreed with Kenshin, but since I am an adult and a parent, I had to say the girls had every right to slap the idiot the way they did. I made a shadow clone look like he was standing in the middle of the park, and he was reading a copy of the bingo book. I waited for a little bit, and saw my shadow clone chasing after them. They indeed were throwing the bells between each other, but my clone actually managed to get the bells a few times. He was then tackled by one of them and threw the bells to someone else. When the time ran out, my clone disappeared and I received the memories. They really did try to seduce him after all. They showed up and were showing more cleavage than they had any business showing anyone. They even went as far as to get really close to him and whisper that if he let both of them pass he could have his way with both of them. My clone tried to get free from them pressing their bodies against him. When he realized that Kasara actually took the bells from him, once she did and he heard a whistle they both took off, and that is when she threw them at Kenshin. After that the test got turned into a much more physical version of hot potato. Like I said, my clone sometimes got the bells and then I heard him being tackled, but it was until I saw the memories of that clone that I realized that it was the women in my team doing the tackling. They were using their seduction scheme to get the bells each and every time that my clone was tackled onto the ground. As I went to where the three of them looked at where my clone disappeared, I took hold of my ninjutsu. Well, looks like only one person has the bells. Good going with the plan Sango. That really surprised me. Now if you two siblings don't tell me what I am testing here, I am going to tell your mother and father to prepare 2 caskets for you too. Sango stepped right in front of them almost like she was shielding them. Teamwork. This test was about working together. We had no chance to get those bells from you sir without teamwork. Kasara actually was right but only partially. I kept sending killer intent their way. They need to get used to feeling that anyways, and I looked at Sango and Kenshin, to think about the benefit of the team and not just yourself, to be willing to do something you hate for the good of the others. I threw at each one a bell and they caught them. Right. Good answers team, good answers. And look, you all managed to get a bell each, so I guess I won't be killing any of you. They each opened their hand and they were empty. That is when they really started to get nervous. I couldn't help but to laugh. Before you three end up having an accident, why don't you look at your belts? The bells had been tied on each of their belts by my shadow clone. The only thing is the bells don't ring. I turned around and began walking. Come on guys, we don't have all day. We need to get our first mission from our cage, and then we got some training to do. I had to admit seeing the memories of my shadow clone running after them, while they tossed the bells between each other made me remember my sons. Sango was not moving an inch from where she was standing. She pretty much demanded that I make good on my bet. I for one didn't like her tone one bit, but in the end, I decided to tell them my likes dislikes in my dream. I told them I like training and learning new things. I disliked perverts and traitors, and my dream was to being together with my beloved wife. They didn't miss a single chance in asking me where my supposed wife was. I told them she was very far away, but easy to locate. As we walked toward the Tsuchikage office they kept asking me where my wife was, the girls, especially for some reason. As we reached the building I told them never to ask me again if I told them, they agreed. I just saw the moon and decided to point at it. You wanted to know where my wife is, there she is. The girls teased me about being married with the moon, and for once I couldn't disagree with them. They were partially correct, my wife was inside the moon actually. I was not going to tell them that anytime soon. Don't need them thinking their instructor is crazy now, do I? After we got our mission and we did the first of the infamous D-rank missions, I came to the clear understanding that the time doing them was a waste of time. To call them a glorified form of a chore was just too generous. I decided right there and then I would do things differently for my team. I decided to go and get the D-rank mission like always, but then as soon as we were back in the training field, I sent shadow clones after they changed to look like us and they would take care of the D-rank mission. While the clones took care of the chore, I was free to teach them about chakra control, elemental manipulation, stealth and silent kill tactics. The chakra control exercise was the tree walking exercise. I decided to show them how easy it was with practice. Mine was going to be different than the ones they learn in Konoha. However, I walked towards a wall and without even stopping I began to walk up the wall, and stood on the wall for a few seconds and walked down like it was nothing major. To do this exercise you send chakra to the bottom of your feet, enough chakra to make you stick to the wall, but if you use too little you will slip off, if you use too much you will be sent off the wall and fall. It's all a matter of using just the right amount to stick to the wall. Questions? Kenshin decided to ask me why would this be useful at all. I told him for starters it made stealth, infiltration and in some cases assassinations a lot easier. I told them that mastery of this particular skill would make them waste less chakra when they use their jutsu, and if they truly mastered it, they could use the technique to create cushions of chakra on their feet to mask the sound of their steps. The real reason I need to teach them better chakra control is that if I don't, I can't teach them one of my most useful jutsu, the shadow clone jutsu. Once these kids know to at least make one of those, then their learning will speed up. For days I taught them things, and for they kept asking why and why do we need it. Honestly, a little more faith in their instructor wouldn't kill them. I did every D-rank mission using my clones and all I ever asked them was to pay attention, do as I instructed and maybe, just maybe a little respect. It took me a solid month to get them ready to learn the shadow clone jutsu. I gave them an entire lecture on the benefits and dangers of it. At first, they could only make one each, but after a few days and using the one clone they managed to learn to make 3 after a week. In their 3rd month they needed a new exercise and for me, it was finally time to take them fishing, for you see the next exercise I was going to teach them is the water walking one. I couldn't help picturing them trying and failing the first time. This will be funny. Onoki was not that surprised that my students advanced that quickly. I got the sneaky suspicion that he has a couple of Iwa Anbu following us. Well, after 3 solid months we were finally ready for C-rank missions it seems. A young woman named Tsunami sent our village a letter. The letter was, shall we say, graphic. She described how miserable her life was. It almost reminded me of Konoha, truth be told. She requested that our village eliminates and take down a criminal group that has pretty much declared her hometown their little kingdom, extortion, forced labor, prostitution, public executions, and worse. The only thing that made me stop reading was when she said that this criminal group also controlled all commerce. That causes me to think of a question. If they controlled their means to make a living, how are they going to pay us? Doing the work of a ninja is not a charity. I asked Onoki and he flat out told me to keep reading. Ah, there is the answer and I owe you. I am not even kidding, this person pretty much said help us and we will pay you later. I began to wonder, why is this considered a C-rank mission? Something about this felt a little odd, almost like something else is going on. I decided to do the only thing I could. I accepted and told our esteemed Tsuchikage we would leave first thing tomorrow. The kids were really happy that they would finally be able to put their training to, as they said, good use. I swear these kids are acting like this as a picnic. I better keep an eye on them, make sure they make it back home to their parents. I don't want to have to explain to a crying mother how her son went a little too enthusiastic and got himself and someone else killed. In my previous life, I did that quite a bit as their emperor. I did not want to do that now. One look at the secretary and she got the message. I needed to speak with my daughter, it seems. Sure enough, as I got to my home, there she was already. She was sitting on a chair in my living room waiting for me. Well, Dad, you probably are wondering why your team is getting sent to an A rank and all the while being told it is a C rank mission. You really got yourself to blame, actually. The old man has been keeping an eye on how you trained your team, and after each one of them could make 3 shadow clones, of course, he would want to test how effective your training of them is. I mean, seriously, Dad, the shadow clone jutsu, why didn't you teach them the flight of the thunder god while you were at it? Or how about the Rasengan? I mean, that technique was developed by a Hokage, all of them were actually. I walked over to the fridge and got myself some juice before walking back to where she was sitting and sat down a chair nearby. You actually sound worried about me, Zetsu. Honestly, this is not going to be a nothing that bad, I will make it back alive. I told you I would not stop till I regained all my pieces, and I can be once again together with Kaguya. She just looked at me, and I guess when she realized how much I missed my wife, she didn't say anything else about the mission. I took care of your packing, everything you need is in the storage scroll by your bed. I have been searching and I already found out that Suna has one of your pieces, and Kumo has 2. If you somehow you get those 3, the total would be 5, so that leaves 4 unaccounted for. I looked at her and began shaking my head. I am sure you will find the other 4 eventually. Now all I need is to cook myself some dinner, or have some leftovers, and go to sleep. I got a feeling that tomorrow I am going to need to be rested. The very next morning I am waiting for my team by the gate. I am no kidding or happy. I have been waiting for the last 3 hours. Didn't the parents of these kids tell them to pack before going to sleep? I cooked breakfast, cleaned my dishes, done some laundry, and even managed to rearrange my closet, or I would have if I didn't have to stand near the gate for this long, feeling like I am a frog on a log. They finally showed up. I took a deep breath and tried my best to smile. You guys finally showed up. Mind telling me whatever happened to pack the night before, getting up early, and me telling you we leave early? Kenshin pretty much looked at his sister and then at me. First off, I did pack early. Secondly, if you want to blame anyone, Instructor Uzumaki, then you can blame my sister. I packed early, but it seems she could not decide which clothes to pack in her storage scroll. I have the sneaky suspicion that it involved both revealing lacy clothes, and trying to seduce you again. I could not help but to shake my head as I heard that, in my case, it doesn't really matter what she wears. Something to protect her body in a combat situation would be preferred. As far as me being seduced by anyone, I guess I really have to say it again, I am married. In other words, I am spoken for, so she has a better chance with someone else. I looked at Sengo and then I had the urge to say that she had a better chance of seducing Sengo, but that would be inappropriate and I really don't want to waste more time. I told them we need to be on our way. The walk was nothing major, mostly until we reached the land of fire. That is when both the girls on my team marveled at how green and beautiful the place was. Instructor, how can you hate the place you were born? This place is beautiful. The flowers, the grass, the trees, the streams, I mean we had to learn the water walking exercise in a pool. I could not argue with Sango, she did have a point. I would agree that this land is beautiful. The fish in some of these rivers are delicious and so are the fruits that grow on some of these trees, vines and other plants. That, however, does not mean Konoha is the same. I hate that dump, couldn't be happier to see it burn to the ground, and stop smiling because I mean it. As Sango looked around us she said that she wasn't smiling. I told her I was telling the 2 nitwits that decided to make a puddle genjutsu right in the middle of this land's dry season. That is when 2 people came out of the genjutsu and they appeared to be wearing clawed gauntlets that were chained together, and they were both women. They clearly took offense at me calling them nitwits because they made a beeline for me. I decided to hell with it. I made a large Rasengan and blew them apart without even trying. My team just looked at the pieces of their bodies scattered all over the place, and then looked at me. Hold on, you know an attack like that When are you planning to ever teach that to us? I told Kasara the answer to these questions without turning around to look at her. I said that when they got better at their chakra control, I then decided to ask her, why do you think I've been so keen about chakra control exercises? The rest of the trip was rather quiet, a little too quiet. Something doesn't feel right, and that is when I heard something that made me wonder if I could ask Onoki if I could muzzle one of my students. Kasara looked ahead of us and screamed with glee, what a cute like white bunny. Wait for a second, it's summer. If that rabbit still has white fur, it means, everyone get down now. Thank goodness they actually listened as a sword came flying directly in the path where they were standing. That rabbit has been raised indoors. They shed their white fur at the end of winter. I looked at the man standing on the sword, and the second I saw him I remember seeing him in the bingo book. I was looking at the one and only demon of the mist, Zabuza Momochi. Nice showy entrance, Zabuza. But mind telling me, why did you try and kill my students and not focus on me? I was the one that killed your two little peons. He flat out said that it was just the smart thing to do, to focus on the weaklings of the group. That made my team go from afraid to incredibly ticked off in about a second. Kasara and Sengo looked like they wanted to rip him a new air hole. Guys, relax, I go this, so the great and mighty Zabuza reduced to a common thug. How have the mighty have fallen? Leave the kids alone, and come fight me instead, or are you too chicken to try? It was kind of hard to tell with that facial mask, but I think his face actually turned purple for a second there. He jumped down and took a swing at me with his sword. I began throwing my kunai at him, and wouldn't you know it, they actually thought that I had such terrible aim. You talk the talk, but once I fight you, you have thrown 12 kunai at me and not managed to hit me once. I guess you were right. I should have focused on you. The kids would have given me a better fight than you. The idiot really didn't understand, or he didn't pay attention. I was actually preparing the field to use one of my father's techniques, but I also had to say that I was a little distracted with the people watching from behind the trees that were a few dozen feet from my students. I need to teach them better detection skills at some point. I took another kunai and with a single hand sign I used the flight of the thunder god. I went from one kunai to the next, cutting into Zabuza. As I did so, I went from one kunai to another at least 3 times each. Zabuza was cut into so many pieces my students looked at me and collectively said damn. I put my hand up and all the kunai came back into my open hand. I am glad that you are impressed, but also watch your language. You are not from Konoha. We don't use that language in our village, we are actually civilized. That is when Sasuke came out of hiding, when Sakura came marching to where I was. Looks like dog never taught them to hide properly or ignore an obvious taunt. You are one to talk, Naruto. You are from Konoha, and where have you been? The Hokage has been sending people to look for you. I smiled as she mentioned that. Alright, it was a fake smile, but still she wouldn't know the difference. I would say that I am touched, but not really. Hello, Emo, Kakashi, who is the albino that looks like he forgot what emotions are, and who is the drunk? The pale kid walked over to me and looked at me still with that emotionless look on his face. My name is Sai, and the man who you quite correctly assessed to be a drunk is our client Tazuna. He is the bridge builder from Wave. Kakashi decided to follow Sai, it seems, because he looked at me and told me with the way he moved his head that we needed to talk in private. I looked at my team and decided to nod in agreement, but not before telling my team something. Okay, team, I need to speak with the Konoha instructor for a bit. If his team tries to get fresh with you, you have my permission to beat them up, just don't kill them. As I walked over to where Kakashi was waiting for me, he was shaking his head at me. I was pretty much wearing standard Junin armor. Granted, it was black with a few red highlights, but I don't see why he is staring at me like that. Naruto, where have you been? After your class graduated, we went looking for you. Apparently, someone left a message saying that they were you and you took the forbidden scroll. Iruka, of course, thought it was Mizuki trying to steal the scroll himself and blame you for doing it. I couldn't help but yawn as he said that. We actually went to that hunting cabin in the woods looking for you. We thought that you must be pretty sad and wanted some time alone. You can imagine my surprise when we found Mizuki blown to pieces from an overly large explosive tag. You were nowhere to be found. Before he continued, I rather put this entire explanation of his to rest, and once the village heard that I was more than likely blown to pieces right with Mizuki, they built a giant statue to their hero Mizuki, and celebrated for 2 solid months the very notion that I was finally dead. Kakashi was quiet a little bit, whispered something. I had to ask him to say it a little louder. Well, you are wrong. They didn't build a statue to Mizuki's honor, and they only celebrated for a day, 2 at most, but they were fined for doing so later. The last part of that comment I didn't believe. To me it was more believable that the writer of Ika Ika finally declared himself gay and being in love with Orochimaru since they were both genin. As you might recall, Kakashi, I did not graduate, which means I was a civilian. That means that I had every single right to leave the village and find a better place to live in. I did. The idiots in the academy failed me on purpose and graded every test incorrectly. Just because they will not acknowledge it doesn't make it any less true. I went and met the Tsuchikage and took an exam to determine my rank within the ninja of his village. I passed, and now I am a Junin instructor of Iwagakure. Those 3 that you saw with me are my students, and where have I been? Training and doing D-rank missions with my students, something I imagine you've been doing too. Kakashi saw me walk away from him and tried to grab my shoulder. I took hold of his hand and pushed it away. Do you have anything else to ask me? 'Cause I need to find out who that drunk is and go to wave with my team. I don't have time to waste chatting. He looked at me and I swear he was almost looking rather sad. It was either that or amazing acting skills, and I mean award-winning acting skills. Do you have any idea where the 9 tails or the Forbidden Scroll are? Yep, acting. He is missing a golden opportunity making movies. The scroll you call the Forbidden Scroll is actually the property of the Uzumaki clan, and since I was the last living member of that clan in that village, it was my property. I didn't steal anything at all, I just took what was mine before leaving. As for the 9 tails, I did something my father, the 4th Hokage, did not or could not do. The 9 tails are dead. I absorbed it into my body. In layman's terms, I ate it, and it was delicious. So Konoha may try and kill me, but they will never be able to use the 9 tails again, cause it not longer exists. Now, like I said, my job as a Junin instructor in Iowa is not as laid back as yours apparently. I need to take care of things. You want to chat, dog? Then we can chat when I have some free time, but that time is not now. I walked away from him. I could feel him following me. You must be Tazuna. Don't worry, we were hired by your daughter. We have been given clear instructions to eliminate Gato and his criminal group in its entirety. Come on, get up. We have long ways to go to reach your town. You are safe now that we are here. I walked over to the pale Konoha ninja I came to know as Sai and could not help but to feel sorry for him. Tell me, Sai, did this man say that you and your team were going to be facing rogue ninjas? He flat out said no. I guess the money situation in Wave was worse than the letter said. That means the contract he wrote with Konoha is null and void. Fortunately for you, Tazuna, the contract your daughter signed is still very much in effect. Sai, I wish you the best of luck dealing with the emo prince here, and the screaming pink banshee. You have no idea how much pity I feel for you right now. Sasuke and Sakura glared daggers at me, but I didn't care. Come on, team, let's go. Our client is waiting in Wave and we are escorting her father there. We have a long way to go, and we are wasting daylight. Kakashi, you and the others can return to your dump, I mean your village. Be sure to tell them if they sent anyone thinking that they will kill me, tell them that I will not be as merciful with them as I was with Mizuki. As Tazuna came to our team, I heard someone yelling for us to stop. Sorry Naruto, but no can do. We signed a contract to escort that man to his town, and that is exactly what we shall do, and I still got a bone to pick with you, so I and my team are coming with you. I looked at Kenshin, Sango, and Kasara and began shaking my head. Sorry guys, it seems their Konoha bunch are going to be sticking with us till we finish this mission. So we need to take care of this mission as soon as possible, so we can go back to our village. As soon as we reached the shoreline, we saw that the boat didn't have space for 9 people. I was tempted to tell them that we take the boat and the people of Konoha could swim, but that would create an international incident, so I decided to keep it to myself. Naruto, are you sure you and your team will be alright not riding the boat? I mean, if you wait here, we can actually send the boat back to pick you and these kids up. The look of anger on my students' faces made me smile. I was feeling quite proud at their reaction, let me tell you. We all walked over to the shoreline, and as the boat began to cross the massive river, I and my team began to walk right alongside the boat. It was good chakra control practice, and as we often did, we don't waste a chance to practice and get better. Sakura looked at us with a look of utter disbelief. She kept trying over and over again to walk on water like me and my team was doing. I stopped her from doing that again. She was liable to drown herself if she kept that up. Your instructor has not even taught you the tree walking exercise, has he? Unlike you, we in Iowa train every chance we get. We can walk on water because our chakra control is that much better than yours. What does that say about the skills of Konoha Genin? She grabbed my jacket and looked at me. She was a little close for comfort. You can say anything you like about yourself, you are only fooling yourself. You are from Konoha, and your words are a disgrace to your birthplace, you miserable D. I placed the cutting edge on my ninjutsu on her neck as she said, D. Go on, complete what you were going to say, Banshee, but be warned, call me a demon and I will cut off your head and leave your corpse to become fish food. Detestable traitor. Iowa has been a place that has hated our village for years. Your parents must be rolling in their graves after you betrayed our village and joined the village that would more than likely love to kill every person in Konoha. I looked at her and she stopped talking as my killer intent was felt on the boat. You don't like me, that is fine. You or your fellow Konoha punks are not needed. Once we are across, you can take the boat back across. Being with you is not what I call pleasant. I could feel the sheer hate coming from Sakura. Naruto, you might need some help. This criminal group might be a little too much to handle with a team with so little experience. I was honestly not interested in listening to Kakashi tell me that my team was inexperienced. I had better thing to do than that. I saw a strange light on one of the columns and sure enough, I found a rather crude explosive device. The time was set for a couple of hours. I told me, students, to look as I began to disarm the explosive, explaining to them the entire process and how to identify each part of the bomb. Like I said, I had something much better than to listen to Kakashi saying ridiculous things like I actually needed his team at all. This is one of those times I regret not having signed a summoning contract. If I had, I could send a message back to Onoki, and I would have an official way to deal with the situation. The outcome would have to be one of two possible outcomes. The best, he sent me a message pretty much telling me I was permitted to kill the Konoha team. If I did that, my loyalty to Iowa would be more than confirmed, or I could show the paper to Kakashi and he would run away with his team if only to keep the emo prince safe. The worst outcome, he could tell me to actively work with the Konoha team. I could see the possibility of this being used to improve diplomatic relations between our villages, or simply to keep them thinking that we are not a threat to them at all. Since I could not send the message, I wouldn't know how he would respond to this situation. I decided to concentrate on my mission and ignore they even exist in the first place. My team managed to defuse 12 explosives planted on the support columns of what looked to be the beginnings of a rather massive bridge. As a man responsible for the well-being of an entire empire, I knew quite a few things many didn't suspect, some things being construction and architecture. I had to authorize all sort of construction projects, so knowledge of that made me a rather well-informed ruler. I placed the diffused bombs in a scroll and decided to walk across till me and my team was on the shoreline. Instructor Uzumaki, do we really have to work with this bunch of tree-hugging morons? Can't we take care of the mission really fast and avoid having to be with that lot? I looked at Sango as we waited for the boat to reach us. I truly wish we could do that, but we need to meet with the client, gather information of the numbers our enemies have and information of their leader. That tragically will take some time. As we began walking towards the place, Tazuna felt like talking with someone, or else why would he come close to me? Tell me, Naruto, how did my daughter manage to get your village to get you to accept? I didn't turn around and told him through a very careful and detailed worded letter. What I want to know is, how are you going to support the weight of that bridge on support columns that small? He began to laugh. There is strength in numbers, but you are correct. We will reinforce them at some point in the construction project. You are awfully knowledgeable to be able to figure that out, and you are so young. I wanted to tell him that I was older, I really did, but they would never believe me. I also didn't want to mention anything and give Konoha any more information about me. Got to keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. I always wondered if that old saying was talking figuratively or actually physically. Konoha was close enough to my home, a little too close for my liking. As we reached his home, which to be honest looked like a converted office of his construction company, I walked in and I had to admit, he may be a drunk, but at some point in his life he was able to do fascinating work. The place looked cozy, friendly, and a rather nice home. I saw a beautiful woman come to greet us. I take it you are our client, a pleasure to make your acquaintance at long last. I am Junin instructor Naruto Uzumaki. These three are my students, Kenshin, Kasara, and Sengo. The other man here is the people your father hired. I still don't know why he hired ninja from Konoha, truth be told. She began to walk towards me and smiled. Well, you have to understand, Mr. Uzumaki, we sent that letter quite some time ago. My father was under the impression that your village had rejected our request for aid. She looked at her father and then at me. She looked like she was feeling quite troubled. I told my father that the decision would take some time, but unfortunately I received your reply to my letter only after he had already left to get help from another village. I see it was Konoha. I couldn't help but to feel sorry for the family. They would have to pay my village and then pay Konoha. Talk about having financial troubles, and I imagine they will have quite a bit ahead of them till the town recovers, even after Gato and his criminal group are dealt with. Sorry for the delay on our part. The distance between us and the extra care to ensure the letter was not stopped or stolen made the letter arrive later than we would initially have planned. By the way, something smells great. I feel like I must apologize if I am interrupting your family dinner with this talk. She almost immediately smiled and thanked me for the compliment. It is no bother at all. Please come into the dining room. All of you must be quite hungry after your long trip and making sure my father was safe. As we walked over to the dining room, I decided to help our client with the pots and pans and helped her place them on the table. As soon as I was done and was about to sit down, I heard someone running in the hallway above us and down the stairs, it seems. You are all fools. Gato is invincible. You will never defeat him. You come thinking that you can save us. You don't know our pain. You lived an easy and carefree life, have no idea of our suffering. I swear the kid looks like he is the same age as Konohamaru, and it seems he is as temperamental as the honorable grandson of the third Hokage. Sakura looked like she was about to lose what little composure she had. I decided to get up and look at him. I've been a parent before, so you could say I was a capable disciplinarian. You got to say your little speech, but let me ask you, what do you know of us? You think you are the only one that knows suffering. I walked over to him. Have you been given rotten food? Told to sleep on the ground? Been injured and refused medical help? Had assassinations attempts been your only birthday present? Well, tell me, kid, does your entire town wish for your death every single day? He told me no, that none one ever would be treated like that. I was when I lived in Konoha. Now here is what I want you to do. Go with your mother next time she goes to buy groceries and have a good long look how the people in this town live. I am willing to bet that you will find people that will make you think your life is 1,000 times better than theirs. I looked at Tsunami and told her that I needed to go out and blow some steam. I apologized for any trouble I might have caused. I began to walk over to the exit, and without turning, No need to follow, guys. Enjoy the meal and be sure to thank our client. I will be back in the morning.